All right, Numbers 18, let's call this one high risk and maybe subtitle it hazardous duty, because as the saying goes, sometimes high risk breeds high reward, but we always have a duty, or at least it's probably wise to count the cost. And the Bible is going to talk about later on in Jesus' ministry. He is going to use an illustration of counting the cost to make sure that you can finish what you've started. And in this particular case, that the reward on the back end is worth the risk on the front end, as we are once again seeing God remind us of the duties of the Levites, building off of what he's talked about before, because there's a lot of drama that's gone on in the meantime. Back in chapter 16, we saw Korah swallowed up, and in many ways that marks a progression where God is going to swallow up a persistent problem in the camp. But he's not just going to swallow up that problem, he is going to reestablish the structure that he had already established in Israel. And now in this chapter, after having reestablished that structure, he is going to reestablish or reaffirm the boundaries around the tabernacle, because what had happened was there was a dispute as to who really was supposed to draw near to God. And that is exactly what God is going to sort out now. He's going to say that he never wants this dispute to happen again, and the boundaries that he is reaffirming are going to be key to making sure the congregation and the rest of the Levites don't get drawn up into the same controversy again. Beginning in verse 2, and with you bring your brothers also, the tribe of Levi, the tribe of your father, that they may join you and minister to you while you and your sons are with you, are before the tent of testimony. They shall keep guard over you and over the whole tent, but shall not come near to the vessels of the sanctuary or to the altar, lest they and you die. And the first thing to notice is Aaron and his sons are supposed to guard the things, because they are so responsible for the holiness of the sanctuary that if other people, even their other brothers, the Levites, draw too close, they all go. And so ultimately that is the high risk. The rest of the chapter is going to go into the high reward, but not before talking about the way in which they are together supposed to safeguard the rest of the nation of Israel. Picking up in verse 4, they shall join you and keep guard over the tent of meeting for all the service of the tent, and no outsider shall come near you, and you shall keep guard over the sanctuary and over the altar, that there may never again be wrath on the people of Israel. And so they are all supposed to work together to make sure that they don't have a repeat of what happened in Korah. Once again, reaffirming the fact that God has carved out the source of the problem, but not satisfied to simply carve it out. He is reaffirming, as we saw, Aaron's staff, but in chapter 17, the structure that he set down. And now he is making sure that they have healthy boundaries. And understand, of course, in our relationships, those are all things we've heard before. I don't need to go through them again. We need healthy boundaries. We know that, but it can be tough to understand how to set them, especially when we want to be really kind to the people around us, and saying no can be really tough. Sometimes saying no is an act of love. We get it all the time. We hear the illustration of a parent with a young child who just can't leave the stove alone. It's not difficult to say it in that circumstance because of the power differential, parent and child. But as a child gets older, sometimes we talk about in the teen years, as they get older, it can be more difficult to set boundaries, because much like we're seeing out of the children of Israel, children of a higher age have a different level of voice, and that voice can be difficult to reason with and sometimes set boundaries around. And even more so in peer relationships, it can be difficult to say no. But sometimes, as we've talked about before, the pain on the front end is much better than the cost to relationships on the back end when boundaries aren't effectively set. So as we always talk about, if I'm arbitrarily setting boundaries on my own wisdom, I can really set them in the wrong place. But one of the reasons why we talk about developing a relationship with God is so that we can set boundaries in the right place, seeking his wisdom for when we really need to say no. And understanding that at times when God is actually helping us to understand where we should properly place boundaries, then we can say it is worth the high risk, because on the back end, the reward is preserving a relationship that we're really concerned about, no destroying. His best to you, as we say, as you go forward in him, setting healthy boundaries with his guidance. His best to you.